I'm not going to lie. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Los Fanboys, the official movie and TV podcast of LRM Online. I am your host, Joseph J. Medina, joined today by Eric Sahlberg.
What's going on, guys? AKA Mr. Turd Sandwich.
Do you want me to call you Mr. Turd Sandwich? Is that the thing that you're wanting now at this point?
I mean, Eric is so plain.
It's a fucking name. What do you want from the name? It's a name.
Yeah.
So as you can see, we are live right now. This is basically, we tried it out last week, but we really didn't tell anyone about it. It was just us kind of messing with things. So this is us actually legitimately doing it for the first time. I just realized I have my glasses on. These are the glasses I wear because I spend so much time in front of the computer. I've started to develop vestibular migraines, which is probably the oldest man disease I could possibly think of. So that's to combat that. I should probably take them off now that I don't have to worry about that. But Eric, or Turd, whatever you want me to call you. You haven't been on this show for a while. People who have been listening to this for a good deal longer probably know who you are, but we may have some people who haven't been around for a while. So tell us a bit about who you are and why we should care about you, if at all.
Oh man, not this again. All right, well.
Oh yeah, you were on LR Mornings earlier this month or this week.
Yeah, even was there?
Yeah, today's episode.
So today's episode. But also, I think it's been the last podcast I did with LRM was Breaking Geek Radio.
Okay, so that was more recent.
And that was right around the release of Dark Web.
Mm-hmm.
So for anyone who's listening, who has been listening, knows about Dark Web, and hopefully knows about Dark Web. Dark Web's a show that I don't even know how to describe it, but I guess the daddies of LRM produced.
The daddies of LRM, I like that.
Yeah. So, I happen to be a part of the series as a production manager, as a director as well. And so if you have been listening, you probably already know this stuff. You've heard me talk about myself too much, and you're like, screw this guy, I don't like him, he's a turd.
Yeah.
But if not, so I've been a part of the LRM team for feels like 3 years now. I think.
At least longer than that.
I started
maybe like early 2017. I think is what it was. Early to mid 2017, give or take.
Let's not make us feel old.
Yeah, I already feel old. I already feel so old that I'm not going to say that. I don't want to mention. We're going to try to avoid the C word as much as we possibly can. By the way, I also want to comment. I don't know if earlier on my audio was fully working, so I apologize for that. I messed that up. And those of you who are listening to the audio podcast, first of all, check out the video podcast on our YouTube channel. And you notice I kind of cut in partway through. It's because I forgot to stop recording, so that's my bad. So once again, we're figuring this out as we go. But we got some cool topics to discuss on this episode. And it's kind of coming out of left field for me as far as the specific topic we'll be mentioning, or the first kickoff topic. And that has to do with some old movies. And not super old, but basically 7-ish years old, I'd say, at this point. And that has to do with Iron Man and Thor the Dark World. Iron Man 3 and Thor the Dark World 2. Thor the Dark World, which is the second one. And the reason why is I don't know if you've been following this, or I mean, I'm assuming you haven't, because for those who don't know, you're more of like a sort of on the ground sort of production type person. Yeah, you're into geek stuff, but you're not as up to date as a lot of us, right? But on Twitter, there has been some interesting trends going on, and it had to do with Iron Man 3, which was the movie directed by Shane Black. Are you a Shane Black fan?
What else has he directed? I guess that'll answer
Nice
your
Guys. What's the other one called? Oh, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Kiss Bang Bang is a good one.
Yeah. So he directed Iron Man 3, and it was very much like a Shane Black movie. Like, it was very much a Shane Black movie. Then you had Thor the Dark World, and that was just a monumental train wreck. But people on Twitter were they were trying to figure out what is the worst Marvel movie out there, MCU movie out there. And for some reason, they were settling in on Iron Man 3 as a potential bad Iron Man movie, which is beyond me. I don't understand in what world that is the case. But there are some similarities in that they came out in the same year. They were both at the very beginning of the second phase, and it's basically the phase that came out after the first Avengers movie. So it was almost like Marvel Studios was trying to figure out how best do they go from something as big as the Avengers to something much smaller and much focused. And with Iron Man 3, you had something that wasn't just focused completely on Iron Man, but it was focused on Tony Stark as a person. And then you look at something like Thor: The Dark World, and that was also relatively closed off in its own little world, and it kind of drained the enthusiasm for the MCU going forward for me. I think Phase 2 was the worst of the phases, and it was them figuring out how to go about going forward. And it wasn't until Guardians of the Galaxy where they kind of had like a little uptick, and then actually before Guardians of the Galaxy, that was Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which was amazing. And then from there, Guardians of the Galaxy. I did not like Avengers: Ultron. And then it was Phase 3 where they kind of seemed to catch their stride. They seemed to find these collaborators they're working with well, and they seemed to go forward. But Iron Man 3 and Thor: The Dark World was like this dark year within the MCU. But I have to say, I think Iron Man 3 is a great movie. It really showed Tony as a character, and I think it's completely underrated. The fact that it just doesn't match up. I think there's two things that it had going against it in the eyes of Marvel fans. And the first is that it didn't connect with the MCU stuff. It was very insular, it very much to itself. And it came at a time when people were like, well, where's Black Widow? Where's Hawkeye? Where's Nick Fury? Where's Thor? Where are these people? Like, how come they're not helping out? And those types of questions. And Marvel still hadn't found a good way to answer them. And then the other big question, I guess, or the big problem was its handling of the Mandarin, which is, I don't know if I would call him beloved, but he's very much a high-profile Iron Man villain. And in this, they made him a joke, a punchline. And the real Mandarin ended up being a different character altogether. So those things I think it did have going against it in terms of fandom, but I still think overall it's a great movie, and people need to start giving. It's not, to me, it's like on the positive side of middling, but it's still great to watch as an insular experience.
Was that was Iron Man 3? I could be so off, but it was Iron Man 3 when Don Cheadle took Terrence Howard's place?
No, that was 2. Which is funny because that's another thing is that I don't feel like people remembered Iron Man 2 when they were trying to say that Iron Man 3 was the worst thing ever, because Iron Man 2 I just feel like it's a mess of a movie. I feel like Don Cheadle didn't quite settle into the role as War Machine yet. I just don't think it worked on many different levels. It was long. That's a problem I had with a lot of early movies too, is it started to get long, especially in the second half, and I felt that especially in Iron Man 2. So I just think that's interesting, but I also do just like to look back at Phase 2 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Phase 2 is just, everyone has learning curves. Right now we look at the MCU as sort of this flawless 23 episode beloved piece of cinema, right? However, it's had its growing pains along the way, and I just like to point those out as, this is a growing pains area, and we really got to see it grow into something bigger than even the filmmakers, I'm sure, even realized it would be. So I think it was a good thing that we got this movie, or these movies, and I don't think we should be as hard on them. And it's funny because Thor: The Dark World became retroactively more important because of Avengers Endgame, where they traveled back into the events into this one. And in retrospect, no, it does not make the movie better, but at least makes it important. And I think that's helpful for the universe as a whole.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I'm so behind on the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I do remember Iron Man 3.
You need to get on that shit, dude.
I know. Well, with all this free time, maybe
do a fucking challenge to get into it because of the fact that you have all this free time. You and your girlfriend can fucking marathon it. I'll give you a list of all the best ones to do. Just tell me which ones you haven't, and then we can discuss the best way for you to move forward in this universe. Let's start there. We could do that right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to say that the last Marvel movie I saw in theaters was Black Panther.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Black Panther was monumentally the last film that I saw that I was like, I'm done with
Why?
Marvel.
You didn't like it?
Because no, I loved it. I just thought that it was like every other Marvel movie. It's like every other starter Marvel movie, and I'm just it's to me it's just become mundane, and it's the same thing over and over and over and over again, different person. And then what I feel like is being I think there's a lot of villains in the Marvel universe that don't get enough, I guess, time put into their
Right.
characters for the most part, and that's what bothers me because some of the villains that they have in these movies are way bigger than what they're giving them credit for. Like, and I know, for example, even with Black Panther, they're talking about how Doctor Doom might be the new villain in the new Black
Yeah.
Panther movie. And to me, like Doctor Doom is one of the most badass super villains in the MCU. Is even like I just hope, however they introduce him in Black Panther, isn't just as like some side character who Black Panther destroys or beats because that's not even
No, I
realistic.
mean I can't imagine because
So
they did just acquire the rights to the Fantastic Four through the acquisition, and everyone has been really anticipating the Fantastic Four, and I cannot fathom them introducing him in Black Panther only to just toss him off to the side. Yeah, maybe they'll have him as sort of a side character or a secondary villain, or maybe even someone who isn't a villain yet and will be a villain later in the Fantastic Four movie. So like I think they're gonna build him up into something that is worth it.
yeah, which you know what? Since we're talking about villains, let me just bring this up. Let's talk about the DC universe and their villains really quickly because I
The
know
DC
Joker
movies?
was, and I have not seen the DC. So I know Joker was like huge this year, or in general. I guess it's this year, technically last year. Um, but I haven't seen Joker yet,
Mm-hmm.
and and most of the reason why I wasn't like super gung ho about going and seeing Joker is because I gotta say I'm fucking over the Joker, man.
Yeah.
Like I don't care anymore about who plays the Joker and what Joker it is and whose Joker's this and whose Joker's that. And then I heard rumors that Johnny Depp might take over and do a Joker. Like who gives a fuck? There's so many other villains in
I don't know, man.
Batman's
A
life
lot of
that
people
they
give
have
a
not.
fuck. Joker has gone on to be one of the most profitable movies of all time because of its relatively low
I
budget. Over
I
$1 billion
get
worth
it.
of people went to go see an R-rated Joker movie.
Well, that's the same thing. What Wolverine was that the one that also like broke crazy records? Was
It
it
did really well
Wolverine?
for itself. I think it made like 700-ish million dollars or so.
Yeah, for a 90 million budget or
It
something.
made less than that
It
actually.
was
And then
so,
Deadpool did it afterwards. Did
right.
even more.
But either way, like, but okay, so I get that Joker's irrelevant is popular. I'm going to say he's popular because anybody who's a true DC Universe fan, DC Comics fan, loves the Joker, but also has massive respect for other villains who have not even had a light of or a shed of, whether it's the Riddler, Penguin, uh, or
The Riddler
like
had
Black
his time
Mask,
to
who's
shine with the great Jim Carrey portraying him. Come on, you can't shortchange the work he put in on
I mean,
Batman Forever. You can't shortchange the work Danny DeVito did in Batman Returns.
okay, I will not short that work. I mean, it's really hard. It's going to be hard to top a Danny DeVito Penguin. But either way, like I just feel like there's there's so many other explored in Batman in Gotham, and they haven't, and I'm over it. So like when I see a new article about Johnny Depp might play the new Joker, I don't fucking care anymore
Yeah.
because we get it. Johnny Depp would do a great Joker. We get it. There's probably like five people you could think of who'd be like they'd be a good Joker. I've seen Joker now so much where it's like you can play a
But
psychopath really well.
there is something to be
Who's
said for the fact that this is like what is it, the second character in film history where you had two actors getting an Oscar for the same role?
Yeah, I mean, hey, look, I'm just saying, let's explore some other
I
DC
agree.
villains. I really.
They seem to be doing that on some level with movies like Birds of Prey. They did Black Mask, which was interesting. And
Well, and so that pissed. I didn't even see Birds of Prey, and I think out of sheer principle, the fact that I heard Black Mask was in it pissed me off
why?
so much because Roman Solaris, Black Mask, is actually one of the very first like close villains to Bruce Wayne. So Roman and Bruce have a past like outside of just being a crime lord that Black Mask became. And so I just thought for them to introduce him into a side movie, which again could have been done right, especially because it was Harley Quinn. I didn't see it, so I can't say. I don't know how he was introduced, but just when I heard it, I was kind of like, wow.
I mean,
like I can't believe they're gonna.
I'm gonna spoil you.
I just don't get it, man. Like Black Mask is actually a much bigger villain.
I'm gonna spoil the hell out of you on this movie, on Birds of Prey. First of all, I think you should see Birds of Prey. I think it's a pretty fun movie. Second of all, he died in that movie as well.
Oh no. Yeah, I mean, and I don't remember in the comic books if Bruce ever actually killed him, but I know. So Black Mask was also in I think he was in Under the Red Hood.
I read that a long time ago. I don't remember.
But he in the I think I want to say he was kind of like the badass at the time because Joker was just kind of off. I know
he's
he,
very
like,
different in Birds of Prey than he is in the comics canon.
Okay. Yeah, and I figured, and that's why I was pissed because I was like, I know that they're gonna not play him right.
They played him well. It just wasn't really comic book accurate. Ewan McGregor chewed up the scenery and was amazing in that movie. But yeah, whether or not it's your hashtag not your Black Mask or not, I guess that's up to you to decide.
Yeah. Either way, DC, please, like I get it, and I'm sure Birds of Prey was fun. I did want to see it, but then I just heard so much trash talk about it. Like a day after it came out, I was like, "Oh no!"
People love that movie though. I thought it was fun. I thought it was great.
All right, well, I'll have to add that to the list of the not MCU.
I need to make a list of all these movies for you to watch on quarantine. That way, you're fully invested into these worlds. I need to know. What you need to do is come up with a list. You need to come up with a list of all the movies that you haven't seen in the MCU or the ones that you have seen. And then from there, I can cherry pick the ones that I want you to watch that I think benefit you as sort of a more passive viewer. By the way, Edgar James is on there. He says Black Mask is a C-list villain. Yo, Eric. So the fact that they use him is on Birds of Prey. C-list movie, C-list villain.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know, Edgar. I don't know if he's a C-list villain.
He's definitely really a C-list villain. Like
okay, well, I don't know. Maybe it's maybe I actually hold like dear to him because I was in the midst of writing a what I was going to call Wayne, which was a script about Bruce Wayne's formative years in college. And Roman Solaris, the Solaris family and the Wayne family have always been sort of rivals. The Solaris family was basically like a Wayne Enterprises, but Wayne Enterprises did well, and Roman was the byproduct of his rich parents, of the rich kid who grew up with his parents, who later murders his parents.
He's like the foil. He's like the foil to what's his name? To Bruce Wayne. Basically the polar opposite.
Right. And so for me, specifically, Black Mask holds dear to me because I put him in my script as Bruce's friend, because Bruce and Roman have always been in each other's lives, essentially.
It's funny because you say that, like, I think it makes sense why you would be so attached to him because of the way you utilize the character yourself. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. I mean, as far as like, yeah, I mean, he would get rocked by Bruce Wayne any given day, but he's actually got a really nasty, disgusting past. Like the fact that he like straight up murders his parents and like takes over their money, and then instead he like starts this massive crime organization, essentially, that is actually bigger than and before the Joker. So that's why,
See,
anyway,
Birds of
either way.
Prey. I'm curious what your thoughts will be about Birds of Prey. It's a weird movie. By the way, Zelensky Gary on the chat says that I feel like Harley Quinn is overhyped too. Maybe, but they did find a really good actor.
Well, okay, so let's talk about Harley Quinn. I love Harley Quinn, and I watched the Batman animated series growing up. It was one of my favorite shows, and she's always fun in there. And the biggest problem I have with Harley Quinn isn't Harley Quinn; it's actually the people who fangirl over her. And the reason being that like a lot of people don't understand how twisted, manipulative, and abusive the Joker and Harley Quinn relationship is.
Yeah.
So I see like a lot of girls and a lot of people who know nothing of the comics posting about how, oh, I want to be like Joker and Harley Quinn.
There's
It's
no
like,
way
no,
anyone
you don't.
legitimately thinks that. Like, I've seen that complaint, and I'm like, there's no way I actually see that as like a legit human, as a legit person who's going like, oh, that's so romantic. I just don't. I don't think I've legitimately seen that outside of maybe joking comments, because
No, I know, but it's that that's what I was saying. Like, whatever. Like, Harley Quinn is fun. She's a fun character. I love. I don't know who voiced her in the animated series, but I mean, they
who
basically
was that?
pretty much. I mean, if you want to get technical, that animated series and that voice, the voice actress who did her,
I'm looking it up.
she basically gave birth to that character. I mean, that really, and in my opinion, Mark Hamill too, to Joker.
For sure.
I mean, I mean, in my opinion, Mark Hamill's the best Joker ever. And so
Arlene Sorkin.
Okay. So Arlene, thank you so much, and I appreciate her voice to Harley Quinn. But anyway, so as we're talking about,
Was it Tara Strong? I thought it
DC
might be.
Universe,
Hold on a second. Edgar says it's Tara Strong, and I thought you were right, but I looked on IMDb, and Arlene Sorkin is shown as there. So I don't know what crap I'm reading. I don't think it's Tara Strong. Maybe Tara Strong played her later. I don't think she actually played her this, based on my quick not Google, IMDb search. I could be wrong, but I don't think it was her in the animated series original. Sorry, you can continue with your transition.
Okay, so we were talking about. Hold on one second. One second. You talk about something really
It's
quick.
both. Hold on, Edgar. So Edgar says it's both. Please explain. Was it originally Tara Strong, or was it originally Arlene Sorkin? And at what stage did they change them? I like how I'm just relying on somebody here in the chat to help me out with that, because
I don't. If that's the Edgar I know back in Edgar, is that you in Chicago?
he's not going to answer. This is like there's like a minute delay. Don't rely on that.
Oh yeah. Okay, I forgot. Yeah. All right. Well, I can jump off. I'm sure he'll respond.
Okay.
Jump off. So what I was going to say is you were talking about Iron Man 3. Okay. Now Iron Man 3 was. I could be totally wrong about this, but Iron Man 3 had a pretty big theatrical debut in China, right? And that being said, there was a Chinese edit of the movie, as most. Yeah, it's the only one you know. Okay, that is correct. All right, hi Edgar, hi Gary, anyway, so Iron Man 3 has its own Chinese edit version by a company called DMG Entertainment, and DMG used to be Valiant Entertainment, which used to be Acclaim Entertainment, and Valiant is the company who started a little comic book called Bloodshot. And God, Bloodshot stars.
What a stretch! Keep going.
Yeah, Bloodshot stars a very popular actor these days, Vin Diesel.
What?
And I haven't seen Bloodshot. Have you?
I have not seen Bloodshot. I did interview the director back at San Diego Comic-Con, who's really, really nice guy. I know it was tampered with by the whole coronavirus thing. I know I was going to see it, but then didn't because of the whole coronavirus thing, so I didn't bother going anywhere. So yeah, that was a
Oh,
whole
we're
thing.
not talking about
Oh fuck!
COVID-19.
Don't mention it. Don't mention it because it will probably not get probably get demonetized. So don't worry about that. But we don't want to talk about that. The point is, I didn't go because of various reasons. I heard it was okay. I hear that the second half is a
Yeah.
lot better than the first half because the first half really plays up into stereotypes and the second half kind of like changes those or shifts those. So I think that's cool, but yeah, I didn't see it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm actually curious. Valiant Comics was a offshoot of a Marvel Universe. I want to say
Mm-hmm.
uh, in '94, small run before their entertainment, which did such video games as Turok. And I'm not sure what other major. I just know Turok. I remember Turok being one of them. I love
Mm-hmm.
Turok. And anyway, Vin Diesel. He's recently he had some interesting news about him. And
Oh, so
go
the best
ahead.
part of that news to me is the fact that it was him talking about it, which we'll talk about in a second.
Okay. So anyway, Vin Diesel recently bumped into Steven Spielberg, and Spielberg said, and I quote, he told, okay, so apparently Spielberg told him that it's a crime of cinema if he doesn't direct more. And are you familiar with anything with any of Vin Diesel's direction,
No, I'm
director
aware of
stuff?
his career direction and the way that he wanted it to go a specific way, but then it didn't quite go that way, so he went back to the Furious franchise. That's kind of how I saw it, at least. At least from
Okay.
an outside perspective. I don't know how accurate that is from his perspective and all that, but I think it's
Yeah.
interesting. No, but
So
apparently he directed movies or he's directed something.
he directed a feature film called Strays back in '97. It was a Sundance entry. Who also I think that was the same year that Swingers was there.
Shit.
I
Buried.
know I know him and Fabra were in the same Sundance together, and that like he was in that same sort of Sundance because I actually checked out the reason that Spielberg said this to him apparently was because of one of his short films called Multifacial, which I watched today. But before I get even into that, so Spielberg bumped into him recently, and was encouraging Vin Diesel to get back into directing. And what he said to Vin was, "When I wrote the role for you in Saving Private Ryan, I was obviously employing the actor, but I was also secretly championing the director in you, and you have not directed enough. This is a crime of cinema, and you must get back in the directing chair." And to which Diesel responded, I haven't directed enough."
Yeah.
And so I went and checked out uh, the movie Multifacial, his short film, today. And then I later also found out that he directed a short film that led up to, I think, Too Fast, Too Furious, which was called can't Los Bandoleros, which is a short film that's in the Fast and Furious universe. Which I
Mm-hmm.
gotta say, and it's written and directed by Vin, and it's shot in such a gritty, awesome way. I actually really liked it. So definitely go if you guys are fans of Fast and the Furious and you haven't seen Los Bandoleros, please go watch it. It's a great little short film that has Han in it, and it's just a little filler, like basically short episode. It actually makes me think that Fast and Furious might have been a better suit for a television series than it would have
How dare you?
what
You
it's
could not
become,
pull off
which
those
is
high quality stunts on a TV budget back in the day.
not no, but what I'm saying is they could have they could have went somewhere more realistic with it, but
No,
instead it's
hell no.
basically become. I mean, at this point, I'm thinking like, what in the next 5 years we'll have Fast and Furious versus the Avengers,
Yeah.
right? And it
Yeah.
was basically just so it would be just a cavalcade of all the bald actors in Hollywood versus versus the Marvel Avengers. So
Yeah,
anyway,
I think it's interesting because I know at least many of us our first experience, our first exposure to Vin Diesel for a lot of us was either the Iron Giant or Saving Private Ryan, and that's from two pretty talented directors, obviously Steven Spielberg and Brad Bird, and obviously Iron Giant. He said like 5 words and stuff, so it's not like
right.
it's basically like an I Am Groot type situation. But he has
So
worked with a lot of really big directors, and even though this was like decades ago, you never know what kind of talent he could bring to the table, especially since he's been behind the camera and he's been instrumental in these Fast and Furious movies.
right. So so again, going back to his short film, which is what Spielberg said, apparently that was what caught the eye of him, and that's why he cast him in Saving Private Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Multifacial is a short film about. I mean, dude, it's literally like in the same universe as Swingers. If you guys haven't watched it, go watch it. If you like Swingers, you're gonna love this. And it's about basically Vin Diesel's acting career, him going to these different auditions and everyone telling him he's not white enough or he's too dark or he basically essentially having an issue with uh, Vin Diesel not being like he's a mixed actor and they don't know which label to put him in essentially, and so he's getting kind of
Is
rejected
Vin
for.
Diesel a mixed actor?
I so I know his mother is of like European descent,
Okay,
and he doesn't know his biological father, but they definitely say he's quote a person of color. So
interesting.
I don't know which uh, what ethnicity they're talking about, but he definitely has that look. And so anyway, but the short film is basically about that, and it's so funny because it starts off where he's doing this monologue, which you find out is monologue, where he's playing this very stereotypical, almost Andrew Dice Clay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like, and it's so funny to see him doing it. It's almost cringeworthy to watch him do this like stereotypical Italian, like New York accent and monologue. It's pretty funny, and um, the the movie itself, the short itself, so that came out in '95, and then he later had a feature that was in '97 with Strays, which was also written, directed, and starring him.
Mm-hmm.
And I know he's like, I've never seen it, but I think he's like a crime drug guy. Anyway, Multifacial's great, and it's about again just like going through your acting career and being told you're to this, you're to that, which is still relevant to this day. And essentially, at the end of the film, he finds out he's what he compares himself to a cup of coffee as regular instead of too black or too white, and it's regular. So, but it anyway, go check it out. Vin Diesel being told by Spielberg, if Spielberg came up to me and said I needed to direct more, I mean that's pretty awesome.
That's pretty awesome.
And
I just think it's
after
funny.
seeing
I,
after seeing Los Bandoleros and Multifacial, and I want to check out Strays now. I'd be curious to see, especially Los Bandoleros, because that was a Universal like Pictures short film,
mm-hmm.
and I want to see him do something else. I think if Vin was allowed to direct one of these Fast and Furious movies, it would have been a lot different than where we're at now, which again I think is, I don't even know. There's like fucking superheroes in the universe now, isn't there?
I mean, it's been not yeah. Yeah, you had I mean Hobbs and Shaw. It's not a stretch compared basically Fast and Furious 4 on. It's been that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember which one was the one where they did the train stuff. I think that was 4. Or was that 5? That may have been Fast 5. Maybe it was Fast 5 where that really took off in that direction. But yeah, I like that direction personally, as someone who likes big blockbusters and as someone who I'm sure they like money. So I'm sure they decided, hey, let's go in this direction because that's where the money's at. And but I think it's really funny to me, and I have nothing against Vin Diesel, but he does seem a little bit full of himself based on what he says. And I just think it's weird that he always says that he's the one who brought this up, because this quote is him talking about what Steven Spielberg says. It says, "Speaking of Steven Spielberg, I saw him recently, and he said to me, when I wrote the role for you in Saving Private Ryan, I was obviously championing the actor, but I was also secretly championing the director in you, and you have not directed enough. That is a crime of cinema, and you must get back to the directing chair. I haven't." And then he says, "I haven't directed enough." But I just think Is that funny? Is that weird that I think that's a little bit amusing?
I mean, you're also talking about one of the highest paid actors because of Fast and Furious. I mean, Vin Diesel, unlike The Rock, is a kind of, I'm not going to say The Rock isn't humble or anything. I'm just saying, like, the Vin Diesel doesn't, I think, put himself, he doesn't go the extra mile that, like, The Rock is The Rock, and he has a whole brand, and he's got TV shows about him, and Vin Diesel could do that, but
Could
he
he?
doesn't. I mean, I don't know. Probably. I think he appeals to a different group of people. From what I've always seen of his stuff, he seems like a humble guy, and he's been in the game for a long time now.
That's funny. I've got the exact opposite impression. I've never met him, so I don't really know.
I've never met him either, but I would like to, just because his upbringings in general, and actually multifacial in general, I kind of had like this personal feel to it, only because, my mom is of Eastern European descent. She's American as hell. And then my biological father is like full blown Mexican. And so I always get told, like, but nobody knows that by looking at me, and everyone just is like, oh, and my last name's not his last name. I have Sahlberg last name. So I kind of felt what he was talking about in that short.
Right.
So it was nice for all of us, like, weirdly mixed kids who are just straight up American, but don't, have that. It touched on that. I don't know, on some personal
Like
things that I was like,
the
oh
white
wow.
Tino, like the discrimination against the white Tino people is real.
Yeah, well, it's so funny because I can't tell you how many, like, full-blooded Mexican Americans who are my friends and stuff are like, oh, you don't speak Spanish, and they even say that in the short film where Vin's auditioning for this Latino role, and the woman actress starts going off in Spanish, and Vin just looks like he's lost like a deer in headlights because he doesn't know how to speak Spanish. And when they walk outside, the woman's like, wait, you don't speak Spanish? And he's like, no.
I've been there. I've been there so hard.
Assume.
Yeah, I've been there, and I've been in those situations where you have these white guys come up to you and start speaking, like, not even good Spanish. They're just speaking really basic Spanish, like as if they don't think you speak English. And I'm like, no, I speak English. And they're like, oh, okay. And it's really awkward. I've had some of that as well. And I'm just like, it goes either way. Like, you get discriminated one way or another. But yeah, that's just.
Oh, and we got, so Edgar's talking about Vin Diesel's Street Shark commercial. If you guys haven't seen the Street Shark commercial, it's amazing.
I don't even know what that means. Like the Street Shark cartoon?
Yeah, so there was a big commercial for those toys. I don't know if you had those toys. I had those toys.
They were around when I was around.
When you were around, because you're not anymore.
Yeah. I mean, they were a thing when I was a kid. How about that?
Yeah. So he did the commercial for the Street Sharks, like the toy commercial. It's hilarious. It's awesome, and it's just like Vin Diesel, like, flexing.
How old is he?
He had to be I want to say mid to late 20s.
Interesting.
And he's a grown ass man playing with Street Sharks. It's pretty awesome.
That is pretty awesome. I think if I was a kid and I saw a grown ass man playing with Street Sharks, I'd want to play with Street Sharks.
Yeah. Well, I definitely had a couple of those toys, a couple of those action figures.
I don't think I ever did. I did.
All right, we've stroked Vin Diesel in the Fast and Furious world enough.
Yeah.
What else is going on? What's hot?
What's hot? Well, there's one thing, because honestly, this has really been a sparse week because everything is shut down because of the you-know-what, which I'm not going to name. But there was an interesting piece to come out as a result of that. There was a whole article from Variety talking about all these projects that have been delayed. But there was one weird silver lining, and that has to do with Mad Max. So Mad Max, they had Mad Max Fury Road hit the theaters. I want to say it was 2015 at this point, so 5 years ago. People have been waiting for a sequel. While that was like a real critical success and fanboys and fangirls loved it, like people who are really into cinema, they really enjoyed it. It didn't do that great in theaters in terms of the box office. I don't remember how much it actually made, but I would be surprised if it made much money, but it definitely ended up being an ironically prestige picture for them that year. Like, it was nominated for Best Picture, I think, that year as well. it was just kind of unexpected on that front. So people have been waiting for a sequel, and he's been saying time and again, yeah, I'm totally down to be a sequel, do a sequel. And that's George Miller, the director. However, this supposed sequel is not necessarily going to be what we all expect. Maybe they actually have been. He's been speaking with actresses to on Skype via throughout the whole quarantine situation, and he has met with Anya Taylor-Joy. She's like in The Witch. She's in Thoroughbreds. She's in the New Mutants, and he's met with her for a potential Furiosa spin-off / prequel movie. So the character that Charlize Theron played in Mad Max Fury Road, we'd be getting a younger version of that character. So I know you like Mad Max Fury Road. What do you feel? I don't know your familiarity with Anya Taylor-Joy as an actress, but what do you think of the idea of like a prequel movie, a prequel Furiosa spin-off?
I mean, I'm okay with it. I'm cool with it. I encourage it because Mad Max in general, I mean, it's not exactly a very story-driven piece in the sense of...
No.
I mean, not Fury Road.
I'm kidding. That was a joke. It really isn't.
But like in general, so like for me to see, hot post-apocalyptic babes tearing shit up, I'm down.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you know Anya Taylor-Joy and the stuff that she's done before in the past?
Hold on.
She was in Glass as well. And The Witch.
Didn't see Glass. What?
Who
was she in The Witch?
She was the main girl.
Oh, yeah, she's great, man. I think, and The Witch is awesome. Was that Robert Eggers directed that?
Is that right? I think so. It's been a long time. Yeah, I think Robert Eggers. I'll look that up while you talk. Because I'm curious as well. So, because it's funny because The Witch feels like it came out recently, but it's been several years since that movie.
No, it has. Well, that's because it got more popularity.
Yeah, that was 5 years ago
when it came out back on when it came on Netflix. I remember actually.
Robert Eggers.
It wasn't 5 years ago.
5 years ago.
Was it 5 years?
Yep.
Ago? Okay, so because I thought I talked about my Witch theater experience on one of the Los Fanboys.
Tell it again.
Because I went and saw it. I remember I went and saw it by myself, and it was a terrible experience. It was somewhere in Arizona. Was it 5 years ago? It might not have been The Witch then. Yeah, 2015. No, never mind. Anyway, Anya Taylor-Joy.
That was a great story, man.
No, it was terrible because I know that there was a specific time that I went and saw. I don't remember what movie it was. I can't think of it. Shit.
That's all right. No worries. Don't fret on it.
If it comes back to me, I remember I went off on it about how I had a terrible movie theater experience. But The Witch, to me, when I saw it in the theaters, didn't like it because mostly I think it was because I was probably super stoned, and also I couldn't understand. I couldn't understand half of what the English that they were speaking.
Right.
And so, but when I went back and watched it on Netflix recently, with subtitles, I was like, wow, this is really good.
You're a fucking old person when that happens.
I guess. But to be fair, Robert Eggers then went off and did Lighthouse, which also is not exactly the easiest thing to catch, that the English that he uses in it, and another one that I was like, I need subtitles for this to fully appreciate it, knowing how he was gonna what English he was gonna use. And The Lighthouse is fantastic.
Is it boring? Because I have actually had concerns about that movie being boring.
I don't think The Lighthouse is boring at all. It is. I mean, if you like Hitchcock and you like, I guess, what kind of horror would I describe this as? I guess psychological.
Mm-hmm.
I think you would like it. You haven't seen it?
No, I haven't.
Oh, dude, you would like it, especially as a writer. It's got a Twilight Zone feel to it. It's got a Hitchcock feel to it. And oh my God, just watching Defoe just be him, just be Defoe is just, it's so good. And Robert Pattinson is also good in it too. It definitely gave me some hope for him as a Bruce Wayne, but given some of the recent photos I've seen of the whole production, I don't know, man. I don't know how I feel
All
about
right,
it
so I'm
anymore.
gonna
But
go down the list of Anya Taylor-Joy performances. You can let me know if you see it. So you've seen The Witch. Have you
I
seen
have.
Split?
Nope.
Thoroughbreds.
I, nope. I'm looking at all of her stuff right now, and there's nothing else
What the hell, man?
that's jumping out to me. But in The Witch, she's awesome. She also has a very unique. The camera loves her for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and I would love to see her be in a Mad Max movie as Charlize Theron's younger character, and
It is weird.
I'm
They don't
excited
have
about
similar
it.
faces at all because they both have very recognizable facial features, but their facial features are completely different from each other. I mean, that's not a huge deal, I guess, right? But and I'm interested to see how she does in an action movie because I don't think she's done one before. And she also did the New Mutants, and that is gonna be interesting to see because the New Mutants is also just a weird movie in general in that it was created by Fox at the end of their run and it was delayed for 2 years, and it was supposed to come out the beginning of April and got pushed again because of the what. So it's I will get to see what she's like in an action movie before she gets into this, but it's just she doesn't seem like the type of actor that would be into action stuff. So it'd be nice to see her sort of expand outside of her more actory indie type stuff. I think the closest she's gotten to action was Glass and Split, but she herself did not participate in much of the action. She was just kind of running around.
Yeah. Well, she's top billed in the New Mutants, so I assume there was some action going on with her there.
Yeah, she's definitely I forgot what the character's name is. It's escaped me, but she has like
It's Ilyana
yep,
Rasputin. She's magic.
yep, magic. That's it. And yeah, we've seen
Yeah.
in the trailer that she has some magic stuff going on that we weren't sure that they would lean into because it's a low budget horror movie. We weren't sure if they were actually going to be doing that. So, uh, yay, we're gonna get some action stuff whenever the hell that movie comes out, if it ever comes out. I'm interested to see if they just post it onto Disney Plus because they just need to cut their losses on that thing. And I want to see it. I've been waiting because I wanted a horror movie that is a superhero movie at the same time.
Right. And I want to say I might have known one of the actresses in the New Mutants, but I got to go research it again too. But I do remember it like being a while back now. That when was it supposed to originally come
2018.
out? You said. Yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I still can't
So
believe it hasn't come out yet.
anyway, I'm excited. Anything Mad Max in coming out, I'm on board for. I mean, Mad Max Fury Road to me was one of the better theater experiences I've ever had. Just because I felt like I was on a goddamn roller coaster like the whole time. I was just like, this movie
I
is
think
great.
2015 was kind of a transformative years when it comes to visual effects because I think audiences and maybe filmmakers to a lesser extent, but audiences realize that like, oh, CG can be used for good things. It's not just because at that point I think people were like, oh, all CG is bad, all CG is bad. I don't like CG, I like practical. But I feel like that movie changed things because everyone thought, oh, it's all practical. And then it's like, well, not really. Take a look. It was basically a beautiful merging of practical effects and visual effects. And that is something that we also saw in Star Wars The Force Awakens. And I think people started to realize more and more that there's really a benefit to mixing the different types of methods into getting those movies made. And if you've ever watched any sort of behind the scenes for Mad Max Fury Road, it's just the cinema stuff going on, which I'm gonna ungracefully call the
Okay,
cinema stuff, is just outside this world.
gotcha. So, are you up to date with any of the new like Netflix stuff?
I
Anything?
mean, up to date on Netflix is like that's difficult because Netflix drops. I'm pretty sure they dropped some stuff between when we started this podcast and now. So I have no
Yeah.
idea specifically whether or
All right.
not. Wait, is this the thing that we
So
were talking about earlier? Well, no.
yeah.
Hold on a
So
second for that. I
okay.
will
Okay.
transition into that in a little bit because
Okay.
I like to call this segment something a little bit. I like to call it "Who Watches the Watchers," and that's where we, as hosts here, discuss some of the things that we have been consuming over this past time between the last podcast and this podcast. So I know you came to me with this one movie that or this one thing that you've been wanting to talk about, and so tell me. First of all, lay the foundation. What are you talking about? And describe what it is, because as familiar as you are with this whole situation, I have no idea what it is other than the fact it's a doc
Okay.
over on Netflix or it's a docuseries.
Okay. So a couple days ago, maybe it was even beginning of this week. I'm not sure when it came out, but I started seeing these memes pop up. I'm an avid memer. If you guys are listening, if you guys want to
I'm an
send me, if you
avid
guys want to
memer.
send me any
Do you
good,
put that on your
yeah,
resume?
any good, I think so. I think it would get me. I think it qualifies me for a lot of things
I think it
these
should.
days. But
You're an influencer.
yeah. So anyway, love memes, and I kept seeing these memes pop up about a specific show. Now, let me just start this out. Netflix's hottest show is The Tiger King. It has everything: big cats, mullets, hitmen, leather fringe, amputees, polygamy, labor disputes, mysterious disappearances, and what's that in the corner? Why, it's a cocaine kingpin. And Tiger King is, I guess, super trending right now. And I sent you that meme
Yeah.
too. And essentially, it is a documentary about these, I guess, zoo or tiger owners, tiger entrepreneurs,
So
if
I
you
put it
will.
on
And
screen, the
it's a
meme of I don't know what I'm looking at. So, day 14 of No
okay.
Sports, watching a gay zoo manager seduce straight white men with tigers and meth. Please give me context to this meme.
Okay. So, all right, I saw memes like this popping up, right? And there's a bunch of them, and I'm sure anybody who's listening who is into the meme world or even been online or on Facebook in the past 5 days has seen these pop up as well. So I'm like, okay, what the hell is this? All right. Find out that it's a documentary, docu-series actually, called Tiger King on Netflix, and it just so happens that it's like one of the most popular things on there right now. And with memes coming out like this, I'm like, I have to find out why. So I actually started the docu-series last night, got through 3 episodes. I gotta say, it's one of the most entertaining
But what
shows
is it
that I've
about? What
watched.
is it about?
So
What do I get
it's
into?
literally it's okay. So specifically, it centers around this guy whose name is Joe Exotic, but his real name is like Joe Maldonado. But Joe Exotic is his name. He owns like well over 150 tigers, and he's in Oklahoma. And so he has this zoo essentially where people go and they pay crazy amounts of money too to go and basically play with tigers, hang out with tigers, get pictures with tigers, mostly the baby cubs. And then Joe essentially lives on this property with all these cats, big cats, ligers, tigers, lions, and he, takes care of them. And his basically zookeepers are all like essentially ex-cons,
Of course
and
they are.
like just yeah, and like just I don't, I can't even describe like I don't know how to describe it without offending people,
Right.
but like essentially like it's very interesting characters who work at these places, but it centers around him, and then also this woman, Carol Baskin, I think, and who is a anti, like she's super into like don't do this, don't be encaging animals, but she herself also does the exact same thing. And then there's also another guy who's in South Carolina who's like the Gucci version of both of them, and he's got massive amounts of wealth, and he has all these women who are basically a part of his cult who help him raise these tigers and who also sleep with him. And dude, it's one of the craziest docuseries I've ever even seen, and it just has the potential to. So I'm watching. I've only gotten 3 episodes in. I couldn't stop watching it. I wanted to keep going. I had to go to sleep. But anyway, it's one of the hottest shows right now, and
It's
it
hot.
just so happens that um, it just so happens that it comes out now. And I want to quote something really quickly. Somebody wrote this recently, and bear with me. Imagine if 10 years ago you're approached by a time traveler and he was like, "Look, I don't have much time to explain. All I can tell you is that the year 2020 is going to be an absolute circus. You know Donald Trump, the star of The Apprentice? Well, he's the president of the United States at the beginning of 2020. He gets into a Twitter beef with Iran that almost starts World War III. Australia catches on fire and a woman tries to save it by selling pictures of her boobs. Kobe Bryant passes away in a helicopter crash. Half the world is devastated. The other half just makes messed up memes. A little time passes, and when the world starts recovering from the loss of Kobe, some dude in China eats a raw bat and starts a global pandemic that specifically kills mamas and papas. Everyone loses their minds. 40% of the population thinks it's the end of the world. Another 40% thinks it's all fake. And 20% blames the whole thing on cell phone towers and Tom Hanks' kids. The one thing everyone seems to agree on is that the only way to survive is by hoarding toilet paper. Grocery stores are ransacked, and Charmin Ultra Soft essentially replaces the dollar as the United States official currency. Eventually, hysteria grows. World governments are forced to shut the entire planet on lock every um, entire planet down and lock everyone in their houses. And the only person that can keep people from completely flipping out and starting a huge riot is a gun-toting, mullet-sporting, homosexual Oklahoma man with a meth addiction and 180 pet tigers. And Tom Brady leaves the Pats for the Bucks. Oh, and Carol totally killed her husband. Talking about Carol from Tiger King. Uh, and wow, that's what you read it out loud, and you're like,
It's a lot of
this is
things. That
crazy.
is a lot of things.
I know, but and it's just like so. Anyway, Tiger King, the docu series. To me, I would describe it as a documentary meets reality TV, and at its best, and it has the potential to spawn either a real life movie starring hopefully Danny McBride and uh, and um, it's just like a new form of docu series, and it somehow has the potential for a season two. And I'm reading that it has like that they're talking about a season two. And recently, and spoiler alert, in case you guys didn't know, Joe Exotic does wind up in prison, and he's currently suing. Um, he has a $94 million lawsuit from prison alleging civil rights violations, and he essentially is trying to sue his old business partner and um, whatchamacallit. Yeah, I don't know, just the U.S. Department of Interior. He's suing everybody because they basically robbed him of all of his cats and his land, and what he's saying is $94 million worth of
Mm.
possessions. So it's super. It's definitely something to keep you occupied in our quarantine life.
So is
If
it
you have
fun or is it serious? What is it? Because I feel like I've noticed I have less tolerance for not fun things right now.
no, listen, I don't have a tolerance for boring documentaries as it is. When I first found out it was a documentary, I was kind of like, yeah, maybe I'll let everybody else watch it. But then I was like, wait a second, we'll hold the phone. I start seeing these memes, and when you get memes about, just like the one I sent you, I'm like, okay, what the hell is this? I look, it's super fun. And every episode so far has left me being like, I have to watch the next episode. And even the director, the filmmaker, describes it as they never intended for it to unfold the way it did. And they basically started a documentary about these people, and the where it went was just batshit. And so I'm only on episode 3. So, and I'm sure some people who are listening or out there have definitely seen the whole series.
Right. Cool. Well, I think I'll definitely check it out. Maybe that's something I'll push out there tonight to watch or the next day. It's the weekend, finally. So I get to relax a little bit and watch TV as if I haven't been watching TV the entire week already. But gotta stay safe, gotta stay quarantined and all that. So yeah, that's one more thing to check out. Hopefully, that's a little less demoralizing than trying to catch up on something like Westworld, which is a little bit darker. Hopefully, that's darker,
Yeah.
right? I have no idea what to expect tone
Uh,
wise from Tiger King.
well, I haven't. I've only seen a couple episodes of Westworld. But I do see the cast that they keep bringing
Mm-hmm.
in, and like I feel like it's a rotating cast. So Aaron Paul's in this new
Yeah,
season, right?
Aaron Paul's in the new season. Yeah, I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm at the end of season 1 right now, so I'm excited to see how things turn out in season 2. I hear season 2 is kind of boring, so I'll try to go through that. But yeah, I don't know how the whole season long method works just yet.
Yeah, so I got to catch up on that. There's plenty of things I need to still catch up on. I'm actually watching, aside from Tiger King, I've also been catching up on Vikings.
Mm,
And for any of you who don't know what Vikings is, it's a show about Vikings. It's on History Channel. It kind of presses the boundaries of what you can and cannot show on the History
right.
Channel. It's very TVMA. It's like Spartacus without boobs. Um, so if anyone likes Spartacus, you'd probably like Vikings. If you like history at all, you'd probably like it. It is a little bit not totally historically accurate, but the acting and the stories and everything about it, Vikings is a really good show. I'm on season 3, trying to catch up. And the only other thing that I've watched outside of basically those two things was I recently finished The Witcher.
Mm.
Have you
I
seen
have
that?
seen The Witcher. I thought it was pretty fun. Like as someone who
Yeah.
I noticed more and more I like light things. I'm having less tolerance for things that are
Okay.
depressing, and I know Game of Thrones people love it, but man, that got depressing sometimes. So it was nice to see something like The Witcher where it feels lighter. It feels like it doesn't take itself nearly as seriously as Game of Thrones did. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it
Yeah.
quite a bit. I thought it was fun. It had catchy music, and
Yeah.
Henry Cavill was funny. It felt kind of tongue in cheek without being too tongue in cheek.
Yeah, well, it's funny that they actually took it the way they did because honestly, man, it's not a bright
Mm-hmm.
story. It was written in the I think 80s. It was 8 books by a Polish author,
Yep.
so all the books were in Polish, and turned into graphic novel, I think, and then
Video game eventually.
so it has the video game is massive. I just recently got the video game like a month ago and got into it and realized, holy shit, this game is
Mm-hmm.
huge. And the video game stories are pretty fucking dark. I mean, they're definitely on the darker scheme of what the show is like. The comedy isn't really as there as much as it is in the
Mm-hmm.
show. I do like where they're going with it with in the show. I think it has the potential to have a lot of seasons.
Yeah,
And I hope Henry Cavill stays. I hope Yennefer goes.
she's not gonna go.
Um,
She's not gonna go.
no,
That's not gonna happen.
I know. I just can't handle that. I don't know if it's her acting or if it's however they directed her, but Yennefer in the video game and the story and everything is not her character in the show, and it's almost just off-putting
Well, I
how
know that the video
horrible.
games it takes place after all of the events in the books. It's like at the end of the timeline, so you can imagine they've probably changed quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, you jump back and forth too, like in the game,
Mm.
like because I know in the beginning he even has like a flashback of like him and Suri and stuff, and you kind of find out it's kind of
Keep talking
interesting
really
to
quick. My
play.
cat is being a pain in the ass. I need to let him out of the room. Hang on. Keep talking. Final
So
items.
the the Witcher, uh, it jumps back in the video game in the timeline. You can see Geralt and Ciri, and you kind of it's kind of cool to play the game and watch the show at the
Mm-hmm.
same time to see where they jump, how they took it in the show. And the show, in my opinion, was kind of all over the
Mm-hmm.
place.
It was one of those things where about three or four
And
episodes in, you realize, oh, this is what was happening. That's why it was so confusing, and it recontextualizes everything that you saw before.
yeah, I think they need to really hone in on having a like a cold open, like a better cold open to trying to intertwine stories together. And I know that they addressed that there was a lot of people who were kind of lost on like, oh, well, what the hell part of the timeline are we in now? And I had read that season two is going to be much more
Yeah,
linear.
it makes sense because the reason why, and the showrunner has talked about it, Lauren S. Hisrich, she said that it's because she wanted to make sure that there was an equal amount of weight given to Ciri and Yennefer, even though they come in late into the timeline. So she didn't want this whole thing to just be, what's his name? What the hell's his name? Oh my god, I forgot his name.
Henry?
Yeah, what the fuck's his
Cavill?
character's name?
Geralt?
Geralt, that's it.
Geralt.
Geralt.
Geralt of Rivia.
Geralt, like she wanted to make sure that it wasn't like you had 7 or 8 or 9 episodes of him, and then in the last episode you have the series stuff merging with the Yennefer stuff. Like she wanted to make sure that by the time that we meet, they all meet each other, that we know who they are, we know how their whole story connects, and then we know enough about them going forward to where we actually care. That it's not just at the very end they pop in and then they go forward.
Yeah, and well, I will say this too. Like Yennefer's character is like I actually think they gave her a lot of spotlight, given the fact that the main story is Ciri and Geralt.
Yeah,
and Ciri's like actually essentially. I'm curious to see what they do with her going forward because there will be a jump eventually. They're going to have to change actresses
because she's too old. She's gonna get too old.
No, because she's too young. So like in the video game, you only see her even as a little girl for like a little basically flashback, and then the rest there's other parts of the game that you're playing where she's an adult.
But again, the video game takes place like at the end. It's basically, from what I know, an original storyline that takes place after the books and is completely like separate from it. So I feel like comparing that to what they're going to do in the show, it doesn't quite match up because the movies or the show is going to be actually adapting the stories in the books.
Yeah, there's some similar. So in the beginning of the video game, there are some similar things that they did, and I think it was on purpose. I think The Witcher really has a grab of basically every single type of viewer that you could want, and which is you have your video game crowd, you have your sort of I don't know what you would call that, your mythical like book sci-fi. It's not even sci-fi. I don't know. But you have your book audience, your video game audience. You have the general, you have your Netflix audience, anybody who's a fan of Netflix originals who watch it. And then they're cherry picking all of the Game of Thrones people who are super disappointed with how it ended. So I'd say they got the audience there for a very, very, very successful run. I'm super happy that Henry Cavill is a part of it. I've never really cared to be like, oh, I'm a huge Henry Cavill fan. But after watching it and actually studying about how he is super dedicated to that role and how he does his own stunts and he actually knows how to sword fight like he does in the show, like it makes it that much better.
Yeah, the dude's fucking huge too. That also, it's almost distracting how buff he is because you just look and his muscles are like bulging out of like the heavy cloaks, and it's just like, damn, dude,
well,
Jesus.
There's that audience too. I mean, they're capturing the thousands of women who just want to ogle Henry Cavill the whole time. And
the thirsty audience.
But I will say this, as like I've trained with like basically weighted bars before, like so you can do like bar spins and stuff, something that Donatello would have probably trained with. And I will say that just wielding a sword in general will make your physique quite big. Those are heavy pieces of metal.
Yeah, I can imagine. And it works out the muscles in a way that you normally aren't unless you're doing those specific movements.
Right. So anyway, but don't take this as a tip, guys. Do not be wielding one of your swords that's on your wall at home.
Don't do that.
Don't pick it up and start thinking you're going to be Henry Cavill.
Get a wooden one.
Because you'll wind up with a hole in your wall. And I know Gary, who's been commenting, he has a wooden one. So anyway, keep practicing. But that's it for me, man. That's what I've been watching. That's where I'm at.
So I think that brings it into this episode of Los Fanboys. Don't forget, we have on this podcast, the LRM Online Podcast Network, we have Monday through Friday, LR Mornings, which airs on the LRM Online Podcast Network set of podcasts, Monday through Friday. On Wednesday, we have LRM's Top 5. Fridays, we have this, Los Fanboys. And then on early Mondays, we have Breaking Geek Radio, the podcast. And then outside of that network, or actually within this network, I keep forgetting, we used to not have them on this network, but now they're a part of this. We have 2 new podcasts. We have Geek Scholars Movie News and then What to Watch This Weekend. They usually come, they've been a little bit irregular over the past couple of weeks, but they do exist and they are great. You should definitely listen to them. Outside of this network, we have The Comic Source and Nerd Flicks and Chill. So be sure to check out all of those episodes of podcasts all across the internet. Basically, wherever you get podcasts, that's where they're offered. Eric, where can people find you online?
You guys can find me at Mr. Turd Sandwich on Instagram. I encourage you guys to send me any sort of feedback on not only the podcast, the show, anything you would like to be covered, or if you want to be a guest on the show. And also, I would love for you guys to shit post me some great memes, because I'm always looking for memes.
And you can find me on Twitter at Jam the Writer and all of my novels under the name AJ Cerna on Amazon. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you all live streaming here Fridays at 1 p.m. Pacific time next week, every week that we can. So, so next time, come stocked with questions that you want us to ask, or questions that you want us to answer, rather, or topics that you want us to cover, and then hopefully we'll be able to grow from here, and this will be a more fan interactive type show. So thank you so much. Go ahead.
I just want a quick shout out, Gary Zielinski, Edgar James, and Corey Hampton. Thank you guys so much for being active a part of this. This is great. We want more people to be interacting with us. We want to hear opinions. We want to hear the good, the bad, the ugly, the everything. And feel free to join in next time. Thank you guys so much.
Adios, everybody.
Bye.
Give me 1 second. I'm figuring this out. There we go.
You're like, wow.